Okay, we don't have any new shows coming out at the moment, but there are some things that you might have missed that we can recommend to you, including Quantum Leap. We'll talk about that in a moment. Hello out there, I'm the oldest nerd, and Quantum Leap was one of my favorite shows when it was on in the late 80s. It was starring Scott Bakula, who later became Captain Archer on Star Trek Enterprise, and Dean Stockwell, who was an actor who died last year, but has been in probably hundreds of different motion pictures, and there was a good reason for it. He was a striking personality, a brilliant actor, and could light up a scene anytime he was in it. And he was in most of the scenes during the original run of Quantum Leap. He was, if you're not familiar with the original show, Scott Bakula was a scientist who theorized that you could travel through time during your own lifetime, and he put himself into a time accelerator that he invented himself along with a computer called Ziggy. And his best friend, Al Calavici, who was the head of the project for the military, was his best friend and was able to travel with him in a way by them seeing each other as holograms. So Al was able to interface with the computer to tell him why he was in one place or other, what he might be able to do in order to leave that time zone and maybe jump back to the lab or go on to the next person that he's going to occupy. Always in his time travel, we see as the viewer Sam Beckett, but as Al and everybody else in the characters would see him would be the body that he had inhabited. So that was the premise behind the original Quantum Leap. Now, it has been resurrected, and it is a pickup where the previous series left off. 30 years later, a scientist called Dr. Ben Song is researching, along with a team, on how to rescue Sam Beckett after all these years, who's still caught in time somewhere. His fiancée, who we see in the beginning of the first episode, is named Addison, and actually she was supposed to be the person that was take the leap, and Ben was supposed to be the counterpart to Al. And for some reason that is unknown to the other characters, Ben stepped into the accelerator unauthorized and vanished as such. So then it became Addison's job to link with him and help him out like Al did with Sam earlier on. So, what's different about this and what's the same? Well, they've kept the general idea that Sam Beckett is still lost in time, that Al Calavici, who had the actor, actually died recently, and so has that character. And so they have completely new characters doing essentially the same thing. Now, they've had a slightly different focus on it, though, that I find is significant. One of the things that always bothered me, and being a techie kind of fellow, I like to see just what Ziggy looked like. And really, they were very minimalist in the original show. The only thing that you really ever saw was Sam and Al at whatever time stream they were in, with Al having a remote control-like device where he was able to consult Ziggy. It was presumably printed out before him, and there was no way that we read it or heard what Ziggy said. Now, way in season 5, they eventually gave Ziggy a voice, but it contradicted some things that were established earlier in the series, so we won't talk about that for the moment. In this version, they show the lab more. We know what Ziggy looks like. We know what all the technicians are. In the original show, people like Dr. Beeks and Gucci were mentioned but rarely seen. Dr. Beeks was seen once, Gucci was seen maybe twice, and only for a moment or so. Everything was about the relationship between Sam and Al. In this reboot of the show, it's not really a reboot, it's a continuation of it, we have our main characters. Ben inhabits the body of someone back in time, and this time it doesn't appear to be within his own lifetime, which is kind of different in the whole idea. The idea of once he would leap into a body, the other person's Katra, or whatever you want to call it, would leap into Sam's body and be in the lab. So it always looked like Sam was in the lab, whereas it always looked like whoever it was out in the field. Now, for purposes, it got complicated from there if you tried to explain it honestly. They often would reveal it by Sam looking in a mirror and seeing what he really looked like to everybody else. And they're doing that the same way here. But there's no trading of bodies this time. He just kind of inhabits somebody else's and then jumps out of it. So presumably they black out for a time while he's there, when Ben is there. And the Swiss cheese memory is the same in both. In this case, Ben does not remember who his fiancée is, where in the original, of course, Al and Sam were best friends, and that stayed constant throughout the series. The result of all of this is that there's all kinds of story going on in the lab between the characters that we now have established. The computer programmer, the military lead, and various other people in there all have something to do and something to say about it. And so the emphasis has been taken away actually from the leap. It's fairly simplistic stories anyway, and it always is. In a show like this, basically what you have is somebody's in trouble, our hero comes in, fixes things, and then leaves. That's your basic thing for every Western, every private eye show, every cop show for a long time. And there was no difference here. In this one, though, it seems to be less of a thing and more of a backdoor operation, maybe even a little too much of it, because we don't really see as much chemistry between Ben and Addison as we should. I mean, Dean Stockwell was a very hard act to follow because he could do more with a facial expression than many actors could do with a whole script full of lines. And that chemistry between him and Scott Bakula that worked so well in this show. It was really kind of a buddy show. There were a lot of light moments. They made Al out to be rather lecherous and always with some kind of snide remark or bad joke that made some light of a very serious situation that Sam would be in. In this case, it's a little more intense. I honestly don't know what to think about some of this. It's entertaining enough, especially for a network television program. It is worth checking out, at least the first episode on it. If you have the advanced Peacock, you should be able to see everything there if you pay the $4 a month or whatever it is for Peacock. If not, they're probably still doing reruns on NBC of it. There will be a new season of it, so it may be able to build upon itself and establish itself because the premise really is reasonably good. But perhaps they're trying too hard. Perhaps they're trying to explain too much. Perhaps they really need to know that this is just kind of a buddy show. And you establish the link between those two buddies. One person gets in trouble. The other one helps him get out of it. That's really all it was about. And this one is a little more complex than that. And that might be its downfall. So I'd like to know what you think. If you've seen the show, or if you think you want to watch the show, watch an episode of it. They have one free episode on Peacock, and then if you pay for Peacock, you can see all of them. Let me know what you think about it, and put it in the comments below. In the meantime, if you will please subscribe. We every once in a while will bring out something to watch, and also we are covering Star Trek and Star Wars stories as they come about. We also have Doctor Who retro reviews, Star Trek original series retro reviews, and other things as they come about. So, thank you for watching, and until we see you next time, don't go far.